Hey, tonight we wrap up our study on sin in this episode of Midweek Worship. Thank you for joining me. I am sure you're as happy to be done with this topic as I am. But tonight we wrap up the discussion on sin, what sin is and what it has done to us. But I hope over the last few weeks you have been more blown away by our God and by His great love for us. If you're new to this episode, there is more information about us. It's in the notes, and if you look there, you'll find a link to a YouTube video. If you watch that video after this episode is over with, it's a really short video, but it will give you background information on who we are and where we are and why we're doing this thing and helping you to learn theology right in the comfort of your own home or in a hotel room. This word sin, nobody likes to say it, nobody likes to talk about it, but it's affected all of us and it's all around us all the time. This is the topic we've been talking about for 4 weeks now, and today we wrap this thing up. We describe sin as missing the mark. The mark of what people are supposed to live up to is perfection. It's Jesus. In His actions, He was perfect. In His heart, He was perfect. In His love for God, He was perfect. There was never a moment in His attitude or in His actions that He ever sinned. And that's what God expects from all of us, but none of us have ever been able to live up to that mark, and anything short of that mark is sin. We've also talked about how sin cost us our innocence, and there's no way to get that back. Like an infant who can run around without clothes, we now know the shame and the guilt of not having our innocence anymore. So now we feel dirty or we feel ashamed when we do something wrong. We mentioned that sin, the original sin, was not the first sin as much as sin's consequences passed off from generation to generation to generation to include our generation. And last week we talked about this word imputed, which means the consequences and the results, the failure is as much on our shoulders as it is on Adam and Eve's shoulders. And I told you, without imputed sin, we can't have Jesus's imputed good works, His imputed righteousness. Well, today we talk about actual sin. And this is where there's no escaping it, no getting away from it. We have all messed up. And I've been struggling to figure out a way to describe actual sin. If you think about it, if you've ever been around children as they're toddlers and they're starting to talk, you'll notice that while they're young, they are taught right from wrong, but at some point a child is going to do wrong, and then they're going to look their mother and father in the eyes, and they're going to say a lie to them about what they just did. Did you take something from the cookie jar? Did you hurt your sister? And although they know it was wrong, they also know telling a lie is wrong. It's part of being born into a human with a human conscience. They'll look right there and say, no, I didn't do that, when they did it all along. And I've often wondered, where does that come from? Because you can raise a child in a family to know that it's wrong to lie, to never lie in front of them, to never even hear a lie, and they will tell a lie anyway. Where did that come from? Well, we were infected with that disease from our first parents. Our first parents passed down the potential to sin, the bent towards sin. But we can't blame our first parents for what we've done wrong. What we've done wrong is our fault and only our fault. And you see this illustrated in the Bible book of Ecclesiastes very clearly. I'm going to read Ecclesiastes chapter 7, just one verse to you, but this verse is written by the second wisest man that ever lived. The Bible describes Solomon, short of Jesus, as being no one before him was ever wiser, nor will there ever come anyone after him. And he's describing what he sees as he looks around and what he sees about humans. And I want you to not only hear this verse from Ecclesiastes, I'd like for you to memorize it, because It describes everyone. Here it is, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Only see this, I have discovered that God made people upright, but they pursued many schemes. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Now, I saved this verse to the last lesson about sin on purpose because it says almost everything that we've been discussing. God made us pure. He made us so that we should be able to hit the mark every time. But then our first parents sinned, and now we are no longer capable of hitting the mark. We're born into sin. It's imputed to us. And the consequences, death, is part of the human condition. The moment you took your first breath, you were already on the road to die. But what this verse says is we can't blame our parents, mom and dad, physical mom and dad. We can't blame our first mom and dad for sin. We have no choice but to look in the mirror because all of us have committed actual sin. It's not just the imputed sin. It's not just the bent towards sin. We've all done wrong ourselves, and we can't point the finger at anybody else. That's why he says God made people upright or pure, but then they pursued what was impure. They pursued schemes, and that word schemes is a bad word in the original language. It's the idea of going in the wrong direction, even though God made you to go in the right direction. And this is the God who loves you, the God who chases after you, the God who wants to be with you. I'm telling you this because this is very real and very painful for me right now when people have done wrong and they have deliberately, intentionally done wrong. And there's no one to blame but themselves. Again, I was looking for a way to illustrate this to you. And 40 years ago, almost to the day, one of the greatest failures in business history, you heard me correctly, in thousands of years of money transactions and businesses, one of the world's biggest and the most prestigious companies made one of the biggest failures in history. I'm talking about the Coca-Cola Company, which is the only company logo that can be recognized by every human being on the planet. It doesn't matter where you live, in the jungles, in the deserts, you can be in Antarctica, in the frozen tundra, and there's Coca-Cola available in your area. Well, in 1985, Coca-Cola decided that they were going to improve the Coke formula. So they released what they called New Coke in 1985, 40 years ago. And the results were catastrophic. I want you to see a little video news report the night before New Coke released, and then I'll tell you what really happened after this product came out. But check this video out, will you?
Death and taxes and the picture of George Washington on the dollar bill, those are among the few constants in a changing world. But now another of those constants may be changing. Coca-Cola is about to announce what it calls the most significant development in its history. James McManus reports.
The formula for Coca-Cola is called Merchandise 7X, a recipe so secret that it's locked inside this Atlanta bank vault, so successful that it's been tinkered with, but never dramatically changed in nearly 100 years. But tomorrow, Coca-Cola Company will tell a thirsty world it's putting a smoother, sweeter taste into the most instantly recognizable bottle in the world.
This has got to be the boldest consumer products move of any kind, of any stripe, since Eve started to hand out apples.
We started producing it today.
This is the new Coca-Cola, already taste tested in Memphis, Tennessee. The new formula is also a secret, but it's essentially the same as the extremely popular Diet Coke, but sweetened with corn syrup.
I believe it'll do for brand Coca-Cola what Diet Coca-Cola did for the diet market.
Coke is still it, the nation's favorite, but the phenomenal success of Diet Coke and similar soft drinks has helped cut 2.5 points off Coke's market share in just 4 years.
Well, 1 percentage point of market share in the soft drink industry is generally believed to be $250 million, approximately.
What is it? idea.
Number 2 Pepsi-Cola says Coke is merely trying to match Pepsi's success.
These two products, Pepsi and Coke, have been going at it eyeball to eyeball. And in my view, the other guy just blinked.
Coca-Cola is ready to launch a nationwide advertising blitz, and the company already has sent its bottlers a video pep rally in the War of the Colas.
So let's let her rip. Let's land on the beaches and go all the way.
It's a kick, it's a hit, it's a Coke.
James McManus, CBS News, Atlanta.
After New Coke was released, the Coca-Cola sales took a rapid free fall. They were going through the floor, and eventually, within a matter of months, no kidding, after insane amounts of time and energy and money spent on market research, the Coca-Cola company literally pulled every can of New Coke off the shelves and destroyed them. They basically poured the product down the drain and they replaced it. And if you look at your modern bottle of Coca-Cola or can of Coca-Cola, it will say a word on there in really small print that didn't exist before 1985. It will say Coca-Cola Classic, telling you this is not the New Coke formula. 40 years later, they're still trying to make up for this business debacle, considered one of the biggest business flops of all time. I don't know the numbers and the amount of money that this cost Coke, nor do I want to talk about the money. What I want to talk about here is the fact that Coke had a product that was super successful for 100 years. And then they decided to do something different. And the reason they decided to do something different was everybody said when blind taste tests, yes, this tastes better. We like this better than the other stuff. We like the new stuff better than not just the old Coke, but we like the new stuff better than Pepsi, until they bought a can of it and started drinking. Because what the researchers failed to take into consideration is there's some emotion attached with that can of Coke. And the taste of that Coke brings back some memories from childhood with your grandparents that the new Coke can't do for you. And as a result, that company committed the actual mistake. Look, if it was just on the drawing boards and they were just talking about it for years, it would have been bad enough, not factoring in the emotional attachment to Coca-Cola Classic. But they went all in and got rid of the classic formula altogether and replaced it with the new Coke. And that was catastrophic. It took Coke a long, long time to recover. And it's still on their can today when you see the word classic that we messed that new Coke thing up. What I'm trying to tell you is this is really what happens with sin. We can't blame it on Adam and Eve. We can't blame it on mom and dad. We can't blame it on our circumstances. We got nobody to blame but us. And I'm saying that because I'll put a question on the screens for you. But if you're real and if you're honest with yourself, there's really only one answer to this question. Here it is. Who is responsible for your first lie? You might not even remember because you were so young, but when you told that very first lie, is it because somebody tricked you into lying? Is it because mom and daddy taught you how to lie? Is it because Adam and Eve lied and tried to explain their sin away from God and you inherited? Where did that responsibility lie? And the obvious answer from Ecclesiastes is, when I look in the mirror, I got nobody to blame but me for my sin and the consequences for my sin. But Romans chapter 8, verse 5, God loved us this much that while we were still in our sins, He sent His Son Jesus to die for us. So yeah, everybody who's watching this video has sinned, and we can't blame it on anybody else. But God loves you enough that He's willing to go restore you, clean you up, and make you new. He's going to hold to His end of the covenant, even though we broke our end of the covenant. And all of us have done that ourselves. We can't blame that on anybody else. And if you're feeling the weight of sin right now, I challenge you to surrender your life and your soul to Jesus Christ, to surrender your sin to Him, and let his righteousness clean you up by just simply praying, Jesus, forgive me, because I've messed up and I can't blame anybody else, but I believe you love me, and I believe you came to pay the punishment for my sins by dying on the cross. And I believe they laid you in a tomb, and 3 days later you came out alive, proof that love conquers over evil and that God's love is stronger than my sin. So here I am. I'm surrendering my soul and my sin to you. Would you clean me up? Would you turn me into a new person? And if you made that prayer, and if you mean it, the Bible makes a promise. It says, anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And I'm hoping that right now, somebody who is feeling the weight of their sins has just been released and been freed by the Son. Because when the Son sets you free, John chapter 8, you are truly free indeed. Thank you for joining me. See you back here next week when we start an entirely new topic. God bless.